Welcome back to the Hood to Hooded podcast with your host, Dr. Chieftess Sunflower. I'm hella late today, but you can see from the title, we're talking about slave raiding. You never heard of that word? I'm sure you probably haven't, but we're going to talk about it today. Slave raiding was the foundation of America, and the paper trail proves it. Let me ask you a question nobody ever asked you in school. What if slavery didn't start with plantations? What if it started with raids? What if America wasn't built by settlers? What if it was built by professional kidnappers with legal paperwork? What if the people you were taught disappeared, didn't vanish? They were renamed on paper so land could be stolen. And what if I told you that proof is still sitting right now in the National Archive of the United States in documents so inconvenient they had to be fragmented, filtered, and lost? Okay. Tonight we're not debating your weak feelings. We're following the paper trail of the crime. And once you see it, you can never hear the word America the same. Never hear it the same.
Every dawn is a doorway, and dreamers walk through on purpose. Here, we master mindset, raise oral intelligence, and rebuild legacy brick by brick. We honor who we were before the world tried to rename us. I'm Dr. Sean, dentist, alchemist, Niji, daughter of the land, and this is the Hood to Hooded show, where we transform, rise, and stay risen. Welcome to the tribe.
Welcome to the tribe. This page is about positivity, inspiration, and knowledge to keep us motivated and growing. Hit that subscribe button and join in if you want your daily dose of good energy. Now, before we get into the details, what is the biggest secret revealed fast? We're going to tell the biggest secret first. Secret number 1. Slave raiding started before the U.S. existed. Slave raiding in America did not begin with cotton. No, it started before the U.S. existed. Slave raiding began immediately after 1492. Where do we know that time from? Christopher Columbus ass. That crackhead. You know, I'm convinced all these people were smoking some type of heroin, some crack or something when they was coming up with this shit. Let's get into it though. Right? So, the first people enslaved on this land were the indigenous people, not Africans. Let's get that lie out of your head. The Spanish and the Portuguese expeditions did not explore, they raided villages. Now, when I first read Christopher Columbus' journal, because this was in the beginning of my awakening, I was just confused as hell at how he knew how to pull up to the islands, the Greater and Lesser Antilles. I was wondering how he knew how to pull up so fast, and he was taking the women and the children. I didn't understand it. He was kidnapping on sight. I was like, what's going on? And he would ask for the chief, go and peep out the village, ask them where the goal is. I was just like, what the? He had passed out Bibles. He was putting up crosses, renaming the land, all this stuff. I wondered where he got that energy from, and I found it today. In one word, unlock the secret. And that's what we're going to get into. Men, women, children, all captured, chained, shipped, and sold outside of America. This was so brutal that entire Caribbean nations were wiped out in one generation. He wasn't playing down there. But when they got to Florida, baby, when they got to them Seminoles, we wasn't having that shit. Okay? That's why this unconquered. But let me not get too hyped just yet. This was so brutal that when the indigenous populations collapsed, Europe didn't stop raiding. They expanded the supply chain to Africa. Same logic, same violence, same business model. Secret number 2. Slave raiding was legalized by the church. Get out your feelings. I know you ain't know. It was legalized by the church. Look it up for yourself. This wasn't rogue violence. It was authorized by church decree. Y'all don't like to hear that. Through papal bull decrees known as papal bulls, right? European powers were given legal permission. Hear me clearly now. European powers were given legal permission to invade non-Christian lands. And at the time, this whole continent over here was a non-Christian land, right? So they had authorization from the Pope, from the Vatican, to invade non-Christian lands, to enslave non-Christian people, to seize land permanently, and pass stolen land down forever. And some people, why does it matter? Because you sitting on the stolen land, because you got the stolen land forever. You think you're never going to have peace with the land, because it don't really fucking belong to you. Okay? I don't care how many crackhead laws y'all try to come up with. It don't belong to you. Okay? So, these documents included the documents that were from the church that allowed them to invade, enslave, and seize non-Christian land and people was the Dum Diversas, 1452. That one was before Christopher Columbus. I'm listening, Doc. What's up, Pit Sniper Husker? Watch it on YouTube. Tap in, y'all. Let me know how y'all feeling. Let me get my, yeah, we finna tap in. What's going on? Y'all tapping those hearts? Oh yeah, I'm just getting started. I'm just trying to lay the foundation, because what I found out today shocked the hell out of me. I was trying to figure out, and someone asked me the other day, what happened before the 1704 when they had the slave patrol? Slave patrol led to the police, basically. What happened before then? I couldn't tie it together, because the slave patrol, the black codes, how did it get there? And it made sense today. So they used documents like the Dum Diversas, the Romanus Pontifex. The Romanus Pontifex was 1455, and the Inter Caetera was 1493. These were known as the Doctrine of Discovery. These doctrines from the Vatican and the Pope said that you could steal these lands and enslave people because they wasn't Christians. If you weren't Christian, you were not human under the international law in the 1400s. So while we were over here minding our indigenous ass business, they was making laws, smoking that crack, smoking them heroin pipes, talking about you can enslave people around the world. People don't even know you, don't even care about you, and you all in their business. You gonna travel all the way across the world and interrupt the whole civilization and think that you're going to be okay forever. Like these great grandkids ain't going to get on your ass. Right? This is where slave raiding becomes a policy, not a crime. We're talking about slave raiding today. How it became a policy legally to kidnap you, to do whatever they wanted to do to our ancestors. Secret number 3. Indigenous slave raiding happened inside North America. This is the part they erase from history. You were rolling, Doc. I ain't heard no speculation. You're on point. Great voice and modulation, too. I'm going to take some dinner. Learn and or relearn. Period. Indigenous slave labor. What they erased from the textbook, because I was wondering, I never heard this word before. The chief presented it to me today, and I was like, what the fuck is that? From 1600s, this is the missing time now, from the 1600s to the 1700s, English colonies in South Carolina, which was the worst. They're the ones who started slave codes, black codes. It was really the slave codes, and then it turned to the black codes, and then it turned to the law, police codes. It's easy to track the timeline. Virginia, ran what historians call the Indian slave trade. Look it up. They want to say, you're not Indian, you're not American Indian. Duh, you don't want me to be that. Because that would disenfranchise you from the stolen land that you're on. That would enfranchise you from the entitlement that you feel. That would enfranchise you from all the lies that you told. The Indian slave trade. Oh yeah. That was the 1600s. They don't want to put that in the book, but go look it up. Entire indigenous nations were targeted. Thank you guys for following. Hello, get up and tired. I don't really know what that means, but all right. So, indigenous nations were not assimilated. They were not relocated. They were sold to Caribbean sugar plantations. I'm talking about from inside America. This was the Indian slave trade. But they told you they was bringing people. No, this was their source. The people were the product. The kidnapped people were the product. They were trafficking people. And they walk around bragging like this some shit to be proud of. You proud of that? I wouldn't dare want my ancestors to be a part of a history where we were having to take people to feel like we were supreme and superior. We're going to have to steal whole humans to do that? It doesn't make any sense to me. It's actually deranged. I'm telling you, these was freaking crackheads. That's the only thing I could think of. They was on some real heavy, strong shit that had them delusional as hell. They were sold to New England households and other colonies. Charleston got rich before cotton by exporting indigenous bodies. They were exporting us, coming over here, raiding us, and exporting us. Secret number 4. The first census in the U.S. was a weapon. Why you say that, Dr. Sean? Because the 1790 census, when they started the Naturalization Act of 1790, when they said all white men of Christian descent who are of good character only belong here on this land. Anybody else, you are not human under international law according to the Pope and the Catholic Church. They said free white persons of color. Meaning if you were indigenous, you were not a citizen. If they brought you from anywhere else as they were kidnapping people all across the world, you were not a citizen. Even if you were a free indigenous, you call yourself black, you were not a citizen. Citizenship, which they made under the 1790 Naturalization Act, this is just shit they made up when they was smoking crack. I'm convinced. Because how the hell you think enslaving people give you the right to start some fucking government? Y'all around here doing census research on us. That's just research. And then in the 1790 census records, a lot of us are listed as free, indigenous, Indian. By the time the 1800 census came, the category for free was erased. They only had Negro. That's immediate erasure. That's what they call paper genocide. 10 years, paper genocide. The census classified people so land could be legally taken. Now let's get into part 1. We already talked about the doomed verses. This said that legalized enslavement of pagans. So if you were not a white male Christian prince, you were a pagan, and the church legalized your enslavement. Leorio. I don't know what that means though. Dr. Sunflower, how do we answer the question with regard to reparations? But Africans sold Africans to slave traders. It's dodge, but there is some point there. We're never going to get reparations because they send billions of dollars to these other countries because they're a part of the game. There are 20 countries that were involved with enslaving us. 20 of them. And you'll notice they have sent over 25 trillion, is it trillion? Dollars out of this country since the government has started. You have the same glasses that an anime character has. Yeah, I know, right? They're so cool. I can't barely see with them, but... So, that's never going to happen. And a lot of us feel like we came from Africa when we really are indigenous to America. I know that I'm indigenous here because I did my genealogy. And that's the shockingest, that was the most shocking thing for me. Like, oh my goodness, my ancestors right here in the National Archive. Y'all told me that they was over there. It's all to trick you out of your spot. But when you see slave raiding, as we break this down deeper, you understand why reparations is not really going to happen. What needs to happen is, I can't even say that. But we know what needs to happen. Thumbs up glasses. Okay, y'all feeling the glasses? All right. So the Romanist Pontifex 1455 said, this is permanent land seizure rights. He said you can go and permanently steal this land forever. This is coming from the popes in the Vatican, I remind you. And then the Intercaterra in 1493 divided the Americas between Spain and Portugal. That's why you have South America colonized by the Spanish. That's what they call themselves, Spanish. This was Christopher Columbus people. Portugal, Spanish, yeah. These documents gave legal birth certificates of slave raiding. Slave raiding. South Carolina assembly laws regulated Indian slave sales. So if you were to go look up the South Carolina assembly laws, you would see Indian slave sales. They just took off the Indian word and just started calling the slaves. What's up, Jim? Who Day fan? Just got that number 1 gift badge. Now, other works that talk about slave raiding is the Indian slave trade by Alan Galley. The Indian slave trade. That was a new one for me today. And an Indigenous People's History in the United States by Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz. Now, ground zero, how were specific tribes targeted? The Southeast was ground zero, the epicenter of slave raiding. The targeted nations were the Appalachee. That's my hometown. Tallahassee. The Seminoles. That's what Appalachie Parkway. I went to Appalachie Elementary School. I rode the Appalachie Parkway all the time. That's the Appalachie Indians. The Temecula. The Yamasee tribe. The Guala, the Creek, the Muskogee, the Choctaw, the Chickasaw, the Cherokee were all targeted. Did you say we didn't come from Africa? A lot of us didn't come from Africa, but you would have to do your genealogy so that you can know for sure. You got to do your genealogy. Go to Ancestry and do your genealogy. And you find your ancestors in the National Archives all the way up until 1800s, you're indigenous to this land. And this is going to explain why. It was the Indian slave trade. Have you ever heard of that? Right. What happened? We were raided by colonial militias because at this point, if you came over here on a boat as Slavs, we know they came over here on a boat. They want to say we came on a boat. Where is the boat? But we know y'all came on a boat. White people were not here before really the 1600s. They were not here. Look this up for yourself. They came over here, raided through colonial militias, which turned into the military. They sold people through Charleston Port and exported them to the Caribbean plantations. Villages were empty and land was seized. Think about the Yamasee War in 1715. It happened because indigenous nations were fighting back the slave patrol. The slave patrol was 1704. But before the slave patrol, they did slave raiding. And that is the missing link. We continuing on down this story. So in Florida, missions double as labor camps. So you think we are the original Americans? Facts. Not think. No. This is something that I don't think. I know. No. There's an $8,000 book with our history in it. Why do you think it's $8,000? Because it's our history. When you go back and look at all the drawings, the art that they have in the South America, in Europe, in the Vatican, you'll see images of American Indians with heavy melanin. Heavy. Right? And when they raided, survivors were sold and relocated. They were sold and relocated. Now, I want to get to the part in the beginning. Now we're going to go back to the beginning. Since I gave y'all the foundation, let's go back to the beginning. Because what is a slave raider? Some of y'all might be wondering right now, what is a slave raider? Dr. Sean, you really haven't told me yet. Our law, our Constitution, after amendment says, if you were born here, you're American. It is unconceivable to consider otherwise. We all neighbors. I know it's unconceivable to consider otherwise. Their hair isn't the same as ours. Facts. But here's where the confusion lies, guys. It seems like we are all neighbors. But I'm going to tell you where we're not all neighbors. A slave raider was a person or an organized group whose job was to hunt human beings. So think about this. The government was formed 1790. 1789. George Washington, who was an enslaver, might I add, of 300 plus people, along with 13 other presidents, might I remind us of, in 1790. He created the Census Bureau. They created the Naturalization Act because this is their first year in government because they stole all this stuff. Now they had to create a government and make themselves citizens. They said the Naturalization Act, only free white men could be a citizen under this evil ass, demonic ass government, right? That was 1790. You go back to 1704. This is when they made slave raiding legal. They handed slave raiders badges and called them slave patrols. These are people who did night terror. They rode around asking anybody who they was, where were their freedom papers. Where you supposed to be? Where's your freedom papers? If you didn't have your freedom papers, they could lock you up, unalive you, anything. They didn't have to go to the court. They didn't have to do none of that. Their job was to hunt human beings, kidnap them, take them, and sell them. You see what I'm saying? Y'all remember the movie Get Out? You remember in the movie Get Out by Jordan Peele, how in the beginning of the movie the man was walking, he got kidnapped, and then the next time you seen him, he was on the plantation and he was a whole nother person? That's what slave raiding did. Kidnap people, took them and moved them, and they couldn't even get out. Trafficking. Not metaphorically, not indirectly, literally, they were hunting down people. They captured people by force, sold them into slavery. And here's the plain truth. A slave raider is not the same as a slave owner. We've been taught about the slave owner, the plantation, you picking cotton, but they didn't tell you how them people got there. They didn't tell you that they raided these people. They didn't tell you that they rode around at nighttime and hunted these people. But y'all think that's something to brag about. Kiss my ass. I'm dead ass serious. That's nothing to brag about. You feel like that's something to brag about? You are inhumane crackhead yourself. Alright? Slave owners brought the people. Slave raiders stole the people. That's the part they erased. Right? What did slave raiders actually do? They kidnapped men, women, and children from villages, farms, and homes. They attacked at night or during travel when they were at the market or at ceremonies. They used weapon, terror, fire, and dogs. They still use that in the 1900s. So you can imagine in the 1500s. They chained people together, marched them to ports, forts, and auctions. So the Atlantic trade wasn't real. Oh, it was real. It was just told in reverse. They was trying to get people off the land, move people off the land so they can own the land. Not bringing people here. What these people gonna do here? They took the original people and moved them off the land. Slave raider. I heard that wrong at first. My bad. Oh, no problem. Right? They sold captives who they were kidnapping now. This is people, you imagine you going about your business. You don't know some invaders done took over because it ain't no internet, it ain't no phone, it's none of that. And you walking about your business and they kidnap you and go and sell you. Now they talking about you from Africa. Does it make sense now? Look up Despotisms in America. That book will tie it all together. Despotisms in America. You can Google it, PDF it, and read it. In the first chapter, you're going to see, oh my God, I can't believe they did that. This is what the government is built off of, slave raiding. We're going to get a little deeper than where we at now, because it's all going to make sense. This was human trafficking on industrial scale. Right? Who were the slave raiders? Who were the people doing this terror, this chain, this fire, the dogs, the night attacks? Who were these people? They were European colonizers and mercenaries. Arab slave traders, they were all over. This is how they colonized Africa. They colonized Europe. They colonized Rome. They colonized all of these places. Militias were funded by the empire. Pirates and privateers were backed by charters from England. They were paid per body. You might have been missing your uncle and he done got kidnapped and sold to Europe, sold to the Caribbean, or moved around to another plantation. Then this is when they'll say, oh, you're from Africa. They try to beat it into you because they know you're not from Africa. Why they gotta beat you to say you from Africa if you from Africa? Why you gotta beat me like this? You get what I'm saying? This is all fucking, excuse my language. Why does this matter? And why people avoid the term slave raider? Why? Because calling someone a slave raider destroys the sanitized lie that slavery was passive or accidental, or that we had drapetomania where we didn't want to be obedient, so the doctor's diagnosis crazy because we wanted freedom and we didn't want you over our head because we know that you was smoking some dope. It exposes the violence in the foundation. It exposes kidnapping as a policy, terror as economics. Slavery didn't start with labor, it started with raise, and this is the missing link. It started with raise, get it into your head. Slavery, with the raise, they burned homes. Where do you see that at? They still did that in the 1900s. Where do you think they got it from? That's how they started. Children were taken, blood was spilled. A slave raider basically was a professional kidnapper. Let's call it what it is. You proud? This is what you was doing. Slavery was the after effect of the kidnapping. Colonization was the system that protected them. Do you think we have African blood? I don't think so. I mean, I don't know. You have to do your genealogy. So that's the thing. I can't even speak for other people because I don't know your genealogy. You might have an ancestor from Africa. I don't know, but I know I don't. All of my people is right here, listed on the townships, listed as indigenous, the Muskogee, the Creek, right here. So it's possible. That's why everyone has to do their own genealogy. Until you do that, you will never unlock the code. Once you do that, you will forever be woke because you actually seen your ancestors as inhabitants on paperwork from this fake ass government. Once you see that and you realize they were slave raiding and doing all this stuff, you'll be like, oh my gosh, the lie just unfold. How do you trust it? You can't trust nothing. This is what I'm telling you. You can't trust nothing. Once I saw this, it unlocked everything for me. You can't trust nothing. A professional kidnapper giving a badge? Come on, man. It's still going on to this day. They just got badges now. They call something else now. The slave raiders, the slave patrol. They now are the regular patrol. Right? This isn't ancient drama. It's shaped with borders, wealth, poverty, trauma, and silence. And once you see what I'm saying, you can't unsee it. So I want to break this down. Where did this start and what the fuck happened? Let's stop dancing around and name the moment the crime began. When did slave raiding become America? Because this is their history. They want to act like, oh, the founding fathers, we don't give a damn about these damn enslavers who y'all call presidents who started this stuff and was a part of this stuff. Now you want to act like they sanitized and good patriots. Kiss my ass. The late 1400s, we know 1492, Christopher Columbus. Oh, thought something was on me. We know that Christopher Columbus went to the islands, the Bahamas, Haiti, all these places and started doing slave raiding. He would pull up to the island, see where the people are, see what they look like, ask them where the chief at, where's the village, and then by dawn, they would go back and attack the people, kidnap the kids, take them to Spain, to show the king. This is something they was used to. So the first slave raids was 1400s to the 1500s. Before the United States ever existed. Before America was ever a country. Right? Most of my people were on the wrong side of history. I didn't get to pick my family, LOL. The other half are all good though, so I totally cursed by the sins of my father. I ain't totally cursed by the sins of my father. Thank you for following. I love you, Queen. Please don't get eaten by animals. What? All right. So before the United States existed, again, there was the slave raiders, and they began in 1492. Again, this was armed kidnapping backed by the church and the crown. People always talk about the crown. This was backed by the church and the crown. Remember, they got these doctrines of discovery, the Intercatera, the Doomed Verses from the Pope. This was a church decree. They sent out the church decree, and I realized today, oh, that's what they was going to church to do back then. Christopher Columbus then was going to church, right? But in their church, they were going to church and saying, hey, if they're not Christian, you can take the land and allow them, eat them, whatever the hell you want with them, actually. This is what they was talking about in their church. Oh, yeah. What happened? The indigenous people, our people, were the first targets. Before Africans were trafficked in large numbers, indigenous people in Turtle Island were enslaved, right? The Spaniards raided the Caribbean first. You can see that in Christopher Columbus' journal. There was the Taino genocide. Then they came to Florida, southeast, southwest Mexico, and Central America. The indigenous people, think about this now, because people say, I don't know if I'm from Africa. The indigenous people were captured. Who does it sound like? Branded, shipped, and sold. Many were sent to Europe and other colonies as slaves. Who does it sound like? It sound like us. So you see why they had to reclassify you? Because if they didn't, you wouldn't know that you from here. Spain literally began to run out of indigenous people to enslave because they had genocide. They did genocide. They were so evil. In some regions, the death rates were so high from disease, from illness, just from, this is just straight torture. This isn't my opinion. This is all documented. And the Catholic Church legalized it. Shipped by who? The slave raiders. So they would go kidnap the people, sell them to the plantation. They would send them to the ports and ship them away. That's why it's the Indian slave trade. But they tell you, oh no, it's just a slave trade because they want to take off the Indian. But we not having it. Who did this evil? Colonizers, pilgrims, pirates, crackheads. That's who did it. This is the part that makes people uncomfortable. But we're going to talk about it. Here it is. Those papal bulls were known as church decrees. European powers were given religious permission to raid, enslave, and dispossess non-Christians. So if you were not Christian, if you were indigenous, because we were indigenous, you were legally enslavable. This is when slave raiding becomes a policy. It wasn't even a crime to kidnap you. It wasn't a crime because under international law in the 1400s, you weren't even human if you weren't a Christian. Get that through your head. So when did this become an issue in the United States? Because we talked about it being an issue in the Caribbeans, the Barbados. They did this all down through the islands. When did it show up in the English colonies? The Carolinas, Virginia, and New England. They learned the slave raiding tactics from the Spanish model. They used militias and private bounty hunters. And began organized raids for indigenous people. This is when it became systemic. Indigenous slave raids inside North America. This is the part of the chapter that was erased from history. You probably never heard of this because it was intentionally left out, and I've been looking for a whole year. I ran into Christopher Columbus, 1492, and then I'm like, well, what happened between the time where we had Christopher Columbus, 1492, 1500 to 1704 when they had the slave patrol? I'm like, what was going on between this time? It was slave raiding. It's just so sad and sick, man. It's sick. Y'all still hype up kidnappers and got them on the money and got them on the poles and the statues like they some good ass people. Come on, man. This is psychotic in my eyes. When I found this out, it's just psychotic. It ain't no other way to put it. Our people collapsed from raids, disease, forced labor, and displacement. When in the colonies, almost immediately this was happening. They would set up these colonies, squat, and then go out and slave raid. You know, in order to be over here, after they arrived on the boat through Ellis Island and all these different ports, if you were here, they said, hey, if you a white man, in 1704, they made it a law where white men had to join the slave patrol. It wasn't just like they said we are under slave code. White men had to join the slave patrol. If you were a white man, you had to defend the stolen land. You're going to either be a plantation owner or a slave patrol or be in the militia turned to the military. You're going to be in some part of this defense system to keep this stolen land from these kidnapped people. What happened in the 1500s to the 1600s, all the way to the 1700s, we were fighting, rebelling, and they couldn't take that. They couldn't take it. The slave patrols, so we went from the slave raiding to the slave patrols to the police. It's all to the mass incarceration. In the 1700s, American colonies created the slave patrol. Armed groups to hunt runaways. By this time, they done kidnapped the people. They got them on the land. These people know that they're not from this land. They running away. So they made these slave patrols so they don't run away. They did night raids on your home. They could come in your house, raid your house, kidnap you. All legal. All legal. The government wasn't formed by this time. This was just slave patrols and slave raids going on. Random stop and searches. What that sound like? They still do that right now. These patrols became legally protected and later evolved into modern policing structures in the U.S. So the raiding did not stop, guys. Hear me clearly when I say this. The raiding never stopped. They just gave it a badge. Oh, they got a badge now. Come on, man. I'm going to tell y'all what the fuck really happened. The land was invaded. Our people were hunted. Kidnapping became law. Religion was used to justify it. Wealth was built on it. And then history tried to clean it up and say slavery happened. No, slave raiding happened. Slavery was the warehouse phase. Why people don't want this said? It's too heavy. It's too heavy. They didn't want this said because once you say slave raider instead of slave owner, you expose the theft. You expose the violence. You expose the ongoing benefit. And you expose that this was never moral. It wasn't accidental. It was of that time. It was organized crime with uniforms and paperwork. Kind of like now, organized crime system. Organized crime system. So we want to know, like, how this kidnapping became law. How did land looting become legal? How did these lies become history? Where did it come from? We already know the church laws. We'll say it again. The binding international law at the time that slave raiding was going on was the church law, the papal bull. You cannot miss that point. Okay? They authorized Christian rulers to invade, capture, seize, destroy, all of these things. It's crazy. Now, the model. What was the model? Some people, how could this happen? Someone said, we cannot produce albinos. African can. I'm not an albino specialist. I don't know. Africans produce albino. We cannot. Africans produce albino. We cannot. I don't know. I haven't really studied that, so I can't really tell you about that. Dang it, they knew how to handle. Yeah. So what they would do is, remember I said they got this model from the Spanish and the Portuguese like Christopher Columbus. The Europeans. So when they came here, the model was to, number one, look at the land. Number two, identify the village. So if you go back and you read a lot of these historical accounts, I've read historical accounts from Christopher Columbus, even the Spanish invaders in Florida, even the people in Virginia, all up the southeastern, the attacks on the Mississippi mound builders, they all had the same attack method. They would identify the land, pull up to the land. They would identify the village and raid at dawn while people were sleeping at their weakness, just waking up. They would capture the women, the children, and the young men, chain them, march them, ship them, sell them, rename them, erase them. And this model got exported. It says, we cannot produce albinos. Captain Kraken said, I could. We, the original black people of this land, still own our family land all over the USA. Wow. Wow. So yeah, this history is eye-opening. When they gave slave raiders a badge, that's really when it started to turn even worse, because now when they first pulled up and they would do the system where they would identify your village, sit outside your village while you sleeping, set the homes on fire, and then when they set the home on fire, this is called a raid. That's what a raid is. It's just like a sudden attack you're not aware of. This is how they colonize everything. They got very good at these raids, identifying the village, the chief, seeing where the chief sleep at, and then burning the house. And then when they would run out, they would have those firearms, and all the people who ran out and whoever was left over, they would make them their enslaved people now. Then they would use their skin to cover their wounds. It go deep. It go crazy what they was doing after that. Sleep in their homes, steal their stuff. It's just crazy. It said, Okolona, Mississippi, 160 acres, Jew and Buchanan land, Judd land. Wow, 160 acres. Right? So these domestic slave raiders who now had a badge as the slave patrol, 1700s, before the government, before George Washington. This is how George Washington started his presidency with enslaved people, because they were doing slave raids and they had to find out a way to make this less messy. They said, damn, we ain't even from here, so we got to make a law, smoke this dope, make us a law where we could be naturalized to the America. You realize these laws ain't nothing but when they was sitting down smoking that shit, writing stuff down, and they call it a law. What the hell is a law then? The law ain't nothing. It's all against indigenous melanated people. You will notice that the mass incarceration will be of the indigenous people. Who is that? That's us. You see how you're indigenous? Because whatever they was doing in the 1400s and 1500s never changed. They were attacking us. Their biggest hate is towards us. It's not towards anyone else. You think they gonna turn around and give us a reservation? We don't want no reservation. They gave us the projects. I really want to know, like, how or who the hell on the ships that move all them people and where they at. Go back to the primary problem, people. All races can produce the albino race of people except us. I don't understand about the albino question. The head bugs race of people are the same race of people. What? What? Anywho, the domestic slave raiders, after slavery, they did not disappear. They didn't disappear. They become the county militias, the sheriff department, the police forces. The same function with new language. The head bugs race of people are the same race of people. I don't understand what that means. What is a head bug? Maybe I'm lost right now. Look it up. The head bugs race of people are the same race of people. Why was there even ships in the first place? I don't know, guys, but we are a country built on a stolen status in every way, shape, and form. No matter how they try to rename us, rename their crimes, rename what they did, and try to make it legal and good, it's always going to come back to haunt these fucking liars. Captain, the East India Company, for one. First, we must know where these people came from. Well, we know that there were 20 nations who colonized us. 20. The other day we listed all 20, and I can go and find them so we can know what they had to do in 1790 when they made only white people legal. This was their voting block, so they could start making up laws and acting like it was okay. That's why you'll see that the first 13 presidents of this whack ass government, this whack ass company, was all enslavers. They were all a part of this slave raiding system that turned into the fucking government. Why you think we the biggest attacks? Because we the biggest Niji, we the biggest engines, we the biggest Amerindians. That's why we still attack to this day. Them other pretendians, no, you don't got nothing on us. This wasn't you. You try to claim our history. They put you in our spot, but we ain't falling for that no more. How can we keep falling for that? So you saying it was Jews? I'm going to tell you who it was. Head bugs, ticks, and fleas come from the animal. I get what you're saying, Sharon. The head bugs, ticks, and fleas come from animals. Head bugs crawl out of their scalp like dogs. Oh, I ain't say it. Sharon said it. Hold on. Damn, Sharon. Woo, you took it there. Let's be honest. She said it now. The East India Company moved spices from India to China, then took their profit to pay slave hunters in Africa, then hauled them to America, then went home with their loot. I'm not surprised that none of this happened. At this point, guys, after reading what I learned about slave raiding, I'm not surprised about nothing in this country. When I know that you were kidnapping people legally, hunting them down just because they was outside walking at night, they might not ever return home. That movie Get Out is more realistic than you think. That movie is genius. And I thought about that movie when I learned about the slave raiders. I'm like, damn, he was trying to tell us, kidnapping us and then calling us a slave. Pete Mathis got that number 2 gifter badge. Right? Kidnapping us on our own land. It's sad, guys. It's sad. I'm about right. Right, Doc? See, the thing about East India Company and them moving spices from India to China, I don't know about that, so I can't really say. I'm only talking about when they pulled up here on my people. Don't be calling me out. My bad. When they pull up on my people, the Appalachian Indians, the Seminoles, we wasn't having it. And that's why you go to Tallahassee right now. They have whitewashed the Seminoles and made it a whole university and all that. But we know the truth. Just like the Redskins, the Cleveland Indians. This is all indigenous people on the mascot. We just gotta wake up. We can't keep being fooled by this. There were a lot of privateers that made money moving Africans and others to Americas. Africa is colonized. What do you expect? So they just give us this land and didn't save any for themselves. Africa is colonized. The only place in Africa that's not colonized is Ethiopia. Everywhere else is colonized. So this slave raiding, like I said, it didn't start over here. They perfected it by the time they got here. They already knew how to lie. They already knew how to say where we was from. They already knew how to lie. They perfected it. That's why you got the Seminole Wars. There were 3 Seminole Wars, and the Seminoles never lost it. They said, since we can't beat these melanated Niji and Amerindians, we got to erase them on paper. Florida State University, the home of the Seminoles, started as a military school. It didn't start as what you see it as today. That's why you go to Tallahassee, Appalachia Parkway. The Appalachian Indians print all over the land, and the people who the Appalachia don't even know that they're the Appalachia. The Muskogans don't even know who they are. Why they not teaching genealogy in elementary school? Why they not teaching about these slave raiders when they talking about the president so great? Why? I don't see nothing great about somebody who legalized kidnapping. This country ain't gonna ever be great. Make it great again. What that mean? Make it kidnapping again? What are y'all trying to say? Let me know. Facts. I'm in Ocala, Florida. You indigenous. Stop playing with us, man. Please. The 1790 census, when the Naturalization Act happened, when they said white men are illegal and all this, and they had the 1790 census, which is blocked off, you can't get it. You have to go to the next, so you got to go and make an appointment. You got to go do all this and have a handler. You know what I mean? You got to do all of that. You already know what they hiding. In that census, a lot of people were listed as Indian, free, land owning, and the head of household. When they came back 10 years later, after they got 10 years to have this fake ass government, those same families were reclassified as Negro. I need those glasses. I got these off of Temu. I didn't get these off the TikTok shop. I got these off of Temu. And I was like, what the hell? About $5. Right? You can't steal a citizen from their land. You see why they had to make this legal in the government and say that what they was doing was right? Because you can't steal land from someone who is indigenous. They have to change you to a non-person. They use what the Vatican said, what the Pope said, to make you a non-person. That's why when they came up with the Naturalization Act, they made the melanated indigenous people 3/5 of a human, or 3/4, however many fifths, however many lies. I don't give a damn how many lies. You're gonna make people hate their skin color, talking about white supremacy, when the melanin is you can't even understand it. It's so magical, y'all can't even denature it. But y'all like to brag about white supremacy. Do you ever brag about melanin supremacy though? Melanin is the real deal. It's the magical molecule. You got people hating their skin, bleaching their skin in Africa, trying to be white. No, we ain't down with that. You gotta love who you are from the inside out. You gotta know what these people did. The history, it just pissed me off, man. It just really pissed me off. It pissed me off. The Cherokee Nation is centered in God-forsaken Oklahoma, nowhere near where their ancestors' homeland was. They cute glasses, Doc. Thank you. Y'all gonna get these off the TikTok shop. I'm forever trying to find cute glasses. But reclassification, guys, that's just modern slave raiding. Slave raiding didn't end. It evolved into reclassification. It evolved into redlining, eminent domain, vagrancy laws, convict leasing, Jim Crow, black codes, mass incarceration. That's where our men, our chiefs, our leaders are locked up 10 times more than anybody else, because they know who you are. Ain't nobody else getting locked up like that. They know who the real indigenous people are. These are secrets they never wanted to come out. That's why I could never find this in a book. Out of all the research I've done over this whole year, I never saw the word Indian. I never saw the word slave raider. That was hidden. That was hidden. The government benefit got rich off of kidnapping us. And they don't want to call it. They just want to say the slaves. No, you mean the people y'all kidnapped? Like, stop lying. When you pulled up at dawn, when these people were sleeping in their bed, like, stop lying. That's some weak shit. We in Florida, we call that PUSYNI shit. Come on, man. That's what y'all did. Some PNS. That's the nickname for it. PNS. So, what really happened? America was not founded, guys. Get it through your head. It was not founded. It was kidnapped, raided, rewritten, reclassified, sanitized. Slave raiders became settlers, founders, heroes, and that became law. Okay? The victims, us, our ancestors had to fight through hell to get to where we are today, so you can have a voice. That's why everybody waking up talking about this, because we can't be quiet, because y'all try to say, don't read, don't write. What you reading? What you writing? But you can sit and write stuff on your crackhead podium all day. Right here smoking like y'all had. I'm telling you, they had to be smoking that shit. Every time I read it, I'm like, yeah, y'all had to be it's just deranged and delusional. What? Come on, man. Asians aren't getting locked up like that either. They're hard. There are 20 countries that are involved with enslaving us. So when white people are like, oh, we're the majority, no. What y'all did was when y'all came on the boat, in order to come over here, you had to check a box. And if you were any of these nations, you had to pick white. So now you got all these people thinking that you got us listed as a minority. You got all these nations against one group of people. We got attacked from every left and right. Y'all have to apologize eventually. Otherwise, we will continue to embarrass you with the history, with the knowledge, until you wake up. We don't fall down no more. People come in, no, shut up. You do not want to tell me where I come from. I promise you don't, because I know where you come from. You do not want to go there. So reclassification is happening on our nightly news every day. If you dared have an immigrant parent or ever committed a crime and have 3 teaspoons of melanin, ICE hauling you in. Now with the ICE situation, the immigrant situation, that confused me. This is a whole nother level of lies again, because Trump is an immigrant. How you deporting immigrants? Your ass an immigrant. Trump family is Scottish and British, and they wasn't even here in the 1800s. That's what I'm saying. All these people are new to our land, and they come over here changing stuff, changing names. It's just entitlement at its finest, and it's fuck shit at its finest. And I'm sick of it. A lot of us are just sick of it. That's why it's coming back out now, because lies lead to decay. Just like a cavity, if you don't get your teeth fixed, you don't brush and floss, you don't practice good oral hygiene, it's going to lead to decay. And that's what's happening now. The lies all lead to decay because we're going back and we tracking the timeline. When I track the timeline, I'm like, well, damn, y'all just evil as hell. And now you brag like your evilness is good. You brag like what your ancestors did was so good. You want to tell somebody to go back somewhere and all. Well, where the hell you come from? You the last person should be talking about go back somewhere. How you going to say that? Please let me know. You think because the crackhead wrote down naturalization and white people as citizens that means something to us? We don't believe nothing you say now. The credibility was never credible, but now it's even less credible. It's just this age is reclassification as I understand it, Doc. Yeah, reclassification never stopped. It never stopped. It never stopped. So that's what I want us to think about today. All this stuff that happened to our people. And you don't have to get angry or mad like me. I get pissed off. I get pissed off because to go from hood to hood, I know that we had to be oppressed. We had to start with less. A lot of people started with nothing. They took away everything. They attacked us for 400 plus years. Try to erase us, wipe us out, and we still standing. Still standing, still reading, still intelligent, still creating, still inventing. We got a young indigenous Niji just invented gas from plastic. They gotta protect him because they like to steal stuff. Oh yeah, plastoline is what it's called. Put a label on somebody, then write rules against them. Exactly. Kidnap somebody, then make a rule that they can't do nothing. Where did they do that at? The same. They would raid the people, remove their name, rename them, claim the land was unused, then legalize the theft. Because once they got you off the land and then shipped you out, this land is theirs. They could steal your name. The movie, not only the movie Get Out, but the other movie Skeleton Key, creepy ass movie. But it's one of my favorite movies. If you've never seen Skeleton Key, it makes it more like a body swapping, like voodoo type thing going on. But if you get outside of the movie elements of it, you'll see, oh, these people actually unalive these people, and then they acting like they're these people, living in their house, living in their land. That movie is creepy as hell, but it's one of my favorite movies, and I watched this before I learned who I was. So now I'm looking at these movies as a whole new light, like, damn. The pattern repeated itself from the 1500s to the 1700s to the 1800s to the 1900s. Slave raiders became the settlers became the founders, and the founders became the law. So basically, slave raiding became the law. A dark chapter. a dark chapter they want to leave out forever. So when I looked up the 1790 census, it's kind of hard to get. You got to go to DC, and it requires an appointment, archivist assistance. It just, it's crazy. So that's it, guys. That's it. That's all. That's it. I don't know if this helps somebody open their eyes to what is really going on. Hopefully it did. I mean, the whole picture is tied together for me. We know what happened. And before I get off of here, I'm going to find the list of the 20 nations who enslaved us. And then I'll be done. Oh God, we accidentally cliche say your name, Kunta Kinte. Whoops, exactly. It's just sad, man. And then supremacists act like they so holier than thou. Like, come on. What 20 nations? So the nations, and we're gonna get off of here. I'm done after that. I think I done fussed enough. Alright. So the 20 nations that colonized land that became the United States. Here's the list, guys. Settle down, Doc. I love you. You as somebody, you are somebody as anybody else. Right. I need to settle down, right? Ooh, it's not about being angry. It's about revealing the truth. So the 20 nations that colonized land that became the United States. And then we're done for tonight. Spain. Alright. Spain at 1492. They colonized Florida, Southwest California, Texas. Built missions, forts, slave raids, encomienda labor camps. First large-scale colonizer was Spain. That's why you got down south in the southern part of Turtle Island is Spanish people, because Spain colonized that area. They want to act like they're so, you think that it's Spanish, but Spain colonized South America, the south part of Turtle Island. The next one was Portugal. Portugal. England. Great Britain. Jamestown, 1607. 1607. Really late. They had 13 colonies. You heard 13 colonies? They had slave patrols, Indian slave trade. You hear that word, Indian slave trade? They keep erasing the Indian slave trade out of it because they don't want you to know you're Indian. But back in the 1600s, it was the Indian slave trade, taking these indigenous people, kidnapping them, selling them for profit. Before they was selling cotton and all this stuff, they was taking us, selling us outside, exporting us outside of America. So the slave trade happened, but it was the Indian slave trade. They were shipping them off. Remember Pocahontas? They shipped her off, changed her to a white lady. She was from Jamestown area. That area, right? France, that's another one. They colonized the Great Lakes, Mississippi Valley, Louisiana. The French quarters. Oh yeah. Yeah. The Netherlands. See, the Netherlands I brought up in this, make the list short, Europe. Yeah, Europe, but it's broken down. See, when you break it down, you really see the specific places that are classified under white. So it's not just white, it's all these different countries. Yes, it's full of Europe, but these are different countries that come over here and they be white. They get the white privilege. This is what white privilege is surrounded by. You coming over here, you get good credit, you get loans, you get rent, you get land, you get everything. They were sending people over here. You can get 160 acres for free. They gave away 10% of America for free to people who were coming on the boats because they wanted to get it out of our hands and just give it away. And if they couldn't give it away, they locked it up as a forest or as a national monument. And then they secretly sell it. Okay? The Netherlands, that's where Santa Claus is from. You got Christmas coming up right now. I don't celebrate Christmas anymore because I learned about Santa Claus in the Netherlands and blackface and how they Still over there protesting. Go look up Sinterklaas. Sinterklaas. I meant Sitterklaas and Black Pete. The little boy he kidnapped. Then they came and brought their traditions over here to the colonies, and now they got us celebrating they fucking traditions. Sinterklaas. Go look it up. It's right on YouTube. Go look it up for yourself. You're gonna be like, oh my God, that looked like the bishop from the Pope, but he looked like Santa Claus. And then he got all these white people behind him with black painted face on. They celebrating this shit, pretending like they the black enslaved little boy who they said he was kidnapped and put in a bag. All this has something to do with Christmas. Go look it up. Know what you celebrating. That came from the Netherlands, the Dutch people. So they came over here. Russia. They came over here. They colonized Alaska. And they sold Alaska to the United States in 1867. Russia. And then after they sold it to the United States, this is a place where they got a lot of the Native Americans, the fake Pretendians from. Alaska. Sweden. New Sweden. There was a short-lived but a real colony. Sweden. Finland. They colonized Delaware and Pennsylvania. The Finnish people. Scotland. That's Trump people. Scotland. Scottish settlers pre-union with England. They had a heavy role in the Carolinas and the Appalachia. Scotland, they participated in plantation management and slave holding. You know, they would take loans out on slaves. They put slaves in their will. So if someone died, they listed up the melanated people they kidnapped as property and passed it down. Ireland, another one. They had indentured servitude system. Germany, the Holy Roman Empire they call it. Pennsylvania Germans. Pennsylvania. Denmark. Norway. These are all colonies that's listed under white to make sure that they got the majority vote. But this is their real name. They're not white. They're actually other people classified under white so they can get the benefit. That's why I said all white person's a good character. Even you kidnapping people, you call them out good character. How? Italy. That's another one. The Italians. Belgium. Switzerland. We could keep going on this all day. Austria. Prussia. Luxembourg. Vatican City. All of these nations against one people. Okay? And Pitts Snipe Husker said, make the list short. It's just Europe. Yeah, it was just Europe, but you know. So that's who enslaved us. That's where we at with it. Y'all know who you are. I'm done. Now we know the connection from Constantine 313 all the way up. They were slave raiding until they came over here, and then they were professional slave raiders all the way up to the patrol, all the way up to the popo, all the way up to where we are now. That's why you know this country is all a lie. And until colonizers tell the truth, it's going to forever crumble down because it's decaying right before their very eyes. And I'm not really sad about it. I hate that our people have to be involved with the blows that they about to take, but sometimes we got to get a reset because so many people don't even know what's going on. History. I was never a fan of history until I realized that history had everything to do with my people, and it had everything to do with erasing me as indigenous. You said it better though, Doc. Good work. I appreciate it. Well, I'm off of here, and I will see you guys tomorrow for another live. I don't know what we're going to talk about tomorrow, but I'm sure I'll run into something that's going to piss me off about this colonization. I just want it to be over. I just wish they would have never came and done this. Like, I wish they would have just left us the hell alone. I'm honest, because it's just created a mass problem. Like, anytime you lie about history and reclassify, and you have to do all of this just to take control. How long you think you're gonna have control if you have to do all of this stuff? You gotta write all of these laws and you gotta have the police, you gotta have all of this stuff. Do you really have control? Like, is that a place, like, that's just, I don't know. I'm done, guys. I hope y'all have a wonderful night. I hope y'all have learned something in this live. I see y'all tapped us down to 4.9K hearts. Y'all been showing out on TikTok. Same. Thank you very much. This is Dr. Chieftess Sunflower. Make sure you following. You already know I'm dropping the heat. And you know I already don't give a flying about who don't like it, because we gonna tell the truth, period. African in Africa is best. What do you mean by that? What you mean African in Africa is best? Sup, Miss Sunflower? It's actually Dr. Sunflower, but I appreciate it for the sub. I'm out of here, guys. Enjoy your night. Bye.